stood outside the conference room, heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and pushed the door open. I wasn't sure what I expected, but it definitely wasn't to walk in on my husband, Elliot, pacing back and forth while shouting into his phone. "Listen, I need that money transferred by tomorrow. No excuses," he snapped. "My wife thinks it's for our latest development project. She has no idea." My stomach turned. I felt like I'd just been sucker punched by someone I trusted with my whole life. And the worst part? Some part of me already knew. I'd had this gnawing suspicion for weeks that Elliot wasn't just being stressed out at work, but hearing it out loud, it knocked the wind right out of me. Elliot turned, froze, and his face went pale. "Britney, how long have you been standing there?" "Long enough," I said, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. "What the hell is going on, Elliot? What are you doing?" He gave a fake chuckle, the kind you use when you're trying to cover a lie with charm. "It's nothing, babe. Just last-minute stuff for the Oakwood project. You know how it is." "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "I heard everything. You're moving money behind my back. You're using me." His eyes narrowed. "That charming husband I married? Gone." "Look," he said coldly, "I'm doing what I have to do. This is a temporary investment that's going to pay off. Big time." "Without telling me? Without my consent?" My voice cracked. "You're stealing from me, from our marriage." He stepped forward. I stepped back. "I'm doing this for us," he growled. "You should be thanking me." That's when it hit me. This man in front of me, he wasn't my Elliot. He wasn't the man I fell in love with. That man, the one who once said I was his home, was long gone. "What happened to you?" I whispered. "You used to value honesty. We used to be a team." He smiled, and it chilled me to my core. "That Elliot's dead. This is who I really am. And if you're not with me, you're against me." I stood there frozen, eyes locked on his, mind spinning. How had I missed it? How did I not see the monster growing right beside me? But I wasn't going to crumble. Not now. The next morning, I sat across from my best friend Jessica at our favorite brunch spot. My hands were trembling as I told her everything. About the phone call, the lies, the cold, calculating man I now shared a bed with. "That snake!" Jessica hissed. Her fork clattered against her plate. I always had a weird feeling about him, but I didn't think he'd go this far. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes. I feel like an idiot. I thought we were building a future together. Turns out, I was just a convenience. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Don't do that. This isn't your fault, Britt. This is on him. Now listen to me. You need to protect yourself, financially, emotionally, every way." And that's when it started. The shift. The burn in my chest turned into fire. I had spent years loving this man, trusting him with everything, but no more. Over the next few days, I started going through our records, digging through statements, spreadsheets, anything I could get my hands on. And with every click, every printout, every flagged transaction, I realized the truth ran deeper than I imagined. Offshore accounts, fake companies, large cash withdrawals that led to nowhere. He wasn't just lying, he was orchestrating a full-blown heist, and I was the mark. I couldn't believe it. The man I used to dream with, laugh with, build a life with. He was nothing more than a greedy puppet master, using our marriage as his cover. But he'd made one critical mistake. He underestimated me. I began documenting everything. With Jessica's help, I sorted and labeled the mess into a timeline of betrayal. I consulted a financial advisor, then a lawyer, then a private investigator. I didn't just want to leave, I wanted justice. I wanted him to feel the betrayal he so freely handed to me. I knew I couldn't confront him just yet. He'd just spin another lie. No, I needed to wait for the right moment. The moment he would finally feel powerless, just like I had. It came sooner than expected. One evening, I walked into the living room. He was lounging on the sofa, scrolling through his tablet like the world wasn't crashing down around him. "We need to talk," I said calmly. He glanced up. "What's up, babe?" I dropped the thick folder on the coffee table with a satisfying thud. "Don't babe me, Elliot. I know everything." His face didn't change, at first. He just blinked. "What's that?" "Proof," I said. "Proof of every lie, every stolen cent, every hidden account. You've been scamming me for months, and I've got the receipts." His smile faltered. Then, slowly, it twisted into something smug. "You've been busy, but you're overreacting. This is all part of a plan, a big picture, something you clearly don't understand." I stepped forward. "Stop the act. I know what you've done. And guess what, Elliot? You're not getting away with it." He stood, looming over me. "You want to blow up our life over a few transfers? Everything I did for us." "No, you did it for yourself. You used me, lied to me, betrayed every vow we ever made." Silence. "I want a divorce," I said. The words dropped into the room like a bomb. His face darkened. "A divorce? Cute. You think you're walking away with anything?" "I'll bury you. I'll take the house, the cars, the business, everything. You'll be left with nothing but regret." I smiled, calm as ice. "We'll see about that." He stormed out, but the damage was already done. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready for war. After that explosive night, I didn't waste a second. While Elliot was busy sulking or scheming, probably both, I was building a wall around everything I had left. No more shared logins, no more joint decisions. I was done playing nice. I spent days combing through every financial record I could get my hands on. Bank statements, investment portfolios, old tax returns. At night, I'd sit by the dining table, a sea of papers and highlighters in front of me, my laptop running hot from all the spreadsheets I was building. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was on a mission. With Jessica's help, I hired a forensic accountant, a real bulldog. The woman didn't blink when I showed her the folder. She just rolled up her sleeves and said, "Let's catch this bastard." Turns out, Elliot's web of lies was worse than I imagined. He had set up dummy corporations, moved money into offshore accounts, and forged my digital signature on at least 2 loan applications. And it wasn't just about money. This was calculated. He had spent years laying the groundwork to leave me high and dry, all while sleeping in my bed and calling me his partner. The realization made my skin crawl. One night, Jessica came over with takeout and wine. We sat on the floor, surrounded by documents, eating noodles straight from the carton like 2 college kids on a mission. "You know," she said between bites, "I always thought Elliot was slick. But damn, this is next-level evil." "Yeah," I whispered, and I let it happen. I let him convince me I was paranoid. I let him shut me down every time I had questions. "Not anymore," Jessica said firmly. "Now you've got everything you need to fight back." And I did. But the deeper I dug, the more scared I became. Not for myself, but for what I might uncover next. That's when I got the call from the private investigator. He didn't mince words. "Britney, your husband's already consulted a high-profile divorce attorney. He's preparing to file. Soon." I nearly dropped my phone. So that was his plan. Take everything behind my back, then leave me with nothing but a lawyer's bill. He probably thought I'd be too broken to fight, too blindsided to see it coming. He didn't know who he was messing with. The very next morning, I walked into my lawyer's office with 2 full binders of evidence. My attorney, a sharp woman named Carla with ice-blue eyes and a stare that could freeze fire, flipped through the pages in silence. When she looked up, her expression was unreadable. "You've done half my job already," she said. "We're not just filing for divorce, we're going in with full documentation of financial fraud." I nodded, trying to keep my hands from shaking. "I want temporary restraining orders. I want the accounts frozen. I want to cut off every possible escape route before he even realizes I've made a move." Carla gave me a slow, approving smile. "Now we're talking." Over the next week, I became a woman possessed. I reached out to my business partners and closest allies, people Elliot had always tried to keep at arm's length. One by one, I told them the truth. At first, they were shocked, but then almost every single one of them said the same thing. "We always had our doubts about him." Funny how people keep their suspicions quiet until someone speaks up. But once I did, the floodgates opened. Suddenly, I wasn't alone. I had backup, real backup. I filed first, beat him to the punch. My lawyer served him the papers right outside his gym, where he liked to parade around like a king of the universe. His face, I heard, was priceless. He was furious, humiliated, totally caught off guard. Good. The very same day, the court approved our request to freeze all joint assets. Elliot wouldn't be draining any more accounts or selling off properties behind my back. Every dollar was now under a microscope. That night, he called me 12 times. I didn't answer. He left voicemails that started off calm, even sweet. "Britt, we don't have to do this. Let's talk." But quickly turned into rage. Name-calling. Threats. Promises to ruin me. Classic narcissist spiral. I didn't flinch. Instead, I took the recordings and sent them to Carla. Just more ammo. But Elliot wasn't done. Over the next few weeks, he launched a full-scale war. He hired some flashy law firm known for its dirty tricks, filed counterclaims calling me vindictive, unstable, manipulative, accused me of embezzlement and misconduct in our shared businesses. It was a circus. But Carla and I? We were ready. For every accusation, we had a documented rebuttal. For every cheap shot, we had cold, hard facts. His lawyers were slick, but they weren't prepared for the mountain of evidence I had gathered. And through it all, I kept showing up. To every deposition, every hearing, calm, composed, focused. It wasn't easy. Some nights I broke down sobbing on my bedroom floor. Some mornings I couldn't eat from the anxiety. But I kept going, because I had to. And somewhere along the line, I stopped being scared. I started getting angry again. The kind of anger that burns clean. The kind that sharpens your vision. Because this wasn't just about divorce anymore. It was about justice. About reclaiming the years I had lost. The pieces of myself I had given away without realizing it. And about sending a message, not just to Elliot, but to every woman who's ever been made to feel small, to doubt her instincts, to stay silent when her world was burning down. I wasn't just fighting for me anymore. I was fighting for every version of myself that he had tried to erase. By the time Independence Day rolled around, I was a walking storm cloud under a smile. Our annual 4th of July barbecue was something we used to look forward to. Family, friends, fireworks, and food. It had always been a celebration of love, laughter, and community. But that year, it was war dressed in summer colors. Elliot insisted we still host. I think he was clinging to the last bits of the image he'd crafted so carefully. The perfect couple, the perfect home, the perfect life. Except now, it was all smoke and mirrors, and I wasn't playing along anymore. I watched him that day, the way he moved through the crowd, beer in hand, slapping backs and smiling. He played the victim card flawlessly, dropping hints of our troubles to anyone who would listen, acting like I was the one who'd changed. People glanced at me with pity. Some looked confused. Others just kept their heads down. I let them, because I had a plan. You see, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is wait. Let them feel comfortable. Let them think they've won. And then, when the moment is right, you cut through the silence with a blade of truth. Dinner was winding down. People were full, relaxed, tipsy from too many margaritas. The sky was starting to shift, that pinky-orange hue painting the trees. I stood up, clinked my glass with a spoon, and said clearly, "Can I have everyone's attention?" The chatter died instantly. I looked around the yard at faces I'd known for years. Some confused, some expectant. "I want to thank all of you for coming," I began, my voice steady. "This barbecue has always meant something special to me. It's about family, about connection, about honesty." I glanced at Elliot, who was sitting stiffly now, his eyes narrowing. "But this year, I need to say something real, something that's been hidden for far too long." Murmurs rippled. Jessica looked at me and gave the tiniest nod of encouragement. For years, I believed I was in a partnership, that the person I married had my back, just like I had his. I trusted him with everything. My heart, my home, my finances. Elliot shifted in his seat. "What I didn't realize," I continued, "was that the man I loved was betraying me every step of the way, lying to my face, stealing from our marriage, from me." Gasps. I turned toward Elliot. "I know what you've done," I said loud enough for every person to hear. "The secret accounts, the forged documents, the schemes, the fraud. I have every receipt." He stood up fast, his face red with rage. "You lying!" I cut him off. "I'm not lying, Elliot, but you have been for years." The crowd was dead silent, forks frozen halfway to mouths, a few jaws hanging open. I turned back to the guests. "This man, my husband, has manipulated, stolen, and deceived in ways I wouldn't wish on anyone, and I refuse to be silent about it anymore." Elliot's voice shook with fury. "You think this circus act is going to save you? You think these people care? They'll forget in a week, and I'll take you for every dime." I smiled, a calm, dangerous kind of smile. "No, Elliot, you won't, because for the first time in years, I'm not afraid of you." He opened his mouth to snap back, but froze as he looked around and realized no one was coming to his defense. The charm had finally worn off. The illusion shattered. I had exposed the truth, and no amount of sweet talk was going to patch it up. He stormed off the patio, knocking over a chair on his way out. No one followed him. Jessica reached for my hand and squeezed it tight. For the first time in a long time, I exhaled without feeling like I was holding something back. My voice was out there now, and the weight of silence was finally off my shoulders. But of course, Elliot didn't disappear into the night. Not his style. The following week, he retaliated the only way he knew how, with lawyers and lies. He filed a massive lawsuit claiming I'd been siphoning money from our businesses, that I'd hidden assets, that I was emotionally unstable. The accusations were laughable. but they were loud. He started leaking stories to the media. Gossip blogs ran with it. Britney Spears embezzles millions from husband's company. Inside the explosive divorce of a real estate power couple. It was everywhere. At first, it crushed me. My name being dragged through the mud like that, it hit me in the gut. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think straight. But then I remembered the truth. I had it, in documents, in recordings, in witnesses who had seen it all. And most importantly, I had something Elliot didn't: integrity. So I fought back the only way that matters in a courtroom: with evidence. My lawyers dismantled every single one of his claims. Every one. His stories were full of holes. His witnesses were flaky. His paper trail was sloppy. Mine, on the other hand, was bulletproof. Every lie he told, we countered with 3 truths. Every smear he attempted, we washed away with facts. And my circle? They didn't shrink. They grew tighter. My real friends stayed. My business partners backed me. And people who had been quietly watching came forward to support me. Even Elliot's former assistant reached out and said she'd testify if needed. Apparently, she'd kept records of a lot more than coffee orders. Still, the stress was brutal. The court dates, the press, the threats. At times, I felt like I was underwater, barely breathing. But then I'd remind myself of why I was doing it, not to destroy him, but to rebuild me. One night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, makeup off, eyes tired, hair in a messy bun. I looked like a woman who'd walked through fire. Because I was, and somehow I was still standing. The courtroom was ice cold and buzzing with tension. I sat at the plaintiff's table, heart racing but spine straight, my hands folded neatly in front of me. After months of war, of subpoenas, countersuits, smear campaigns, and long nights, I was finally here. This was it, the verdict. The judge cleared his throat and the room went silent. I could hear my own heartbeat loud in my ears. Elliot sat just a few feet away, still trying to play calm, but I could see the way his jaw clenched, his foot tapping under the table. He knew. He was about to lose. In the matter of Britney Spears versus Elliot Carver, the judge began, his voice clear and slow, I have carefully reviewed all evidence submitted and all testimonies presented in this case. He paused. My stomach flipped. The documentation provided by Mrs. Spears clearly establishes a pattern of financial misconduct, deception, and fraud perpetrated by Mr. Carver. A ripple of gasps echoed around the room. But I didn't react. I stayed steady, eyes locked forward, ears straining for every word. In addition to the financial records, multiple credible witnesses have corroborated Mrs. Spears' account. The evidence is overwhelming and paints a clear picture of manipulation and betrayal. Elliot shifted in his seat. I didn't even look at him. He wasn't my focus anymore. Therefore, the judge continued, I am granting the divorce petition on the grounds of financial fraud and breach of marital trust. My breath caught. It was happening. I was really winning this. Furthermore, the judge said, Mrs. Spears is awarded full control and ownership of all marital assets, including properties, business interests, and financial accounts. Mr. Carver's countersuits are dismissed in full. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard, and then came Elliot's voice. This is insane, he exploded, shooting to his feet. You can't do this to me. You have no idea who I am. I built half those companies. The judge slammed his gavel once. Sit down, Mr. Carver. Your actions were deceitful, and you are fortunate this matter is not being pursued criminally at this time. Elliot stood frozen, stunned. His lawyer tugged at his sleeve, whispering something sharp, but he wasn't listening. Me? I was already exhaling the deepest, most freeing breath of my life. It was over. I'd done it. As I left the courtroom, reporters swarmed the courthouse steps. Flashes popped. Microphones were shoved in my face. I didn't stop. Not yet. Jessica was waiting at the curb, eyes full of pride and tears. I walked straight into her arms, and we stood there hugging like sisters, like survivors. Later that evening, I sat alone on my back patio, the sun dipping low behind the trees. I held a glass of wine in one hand and a folder full of court documents in the other. The sky was quiet. My house was quiet. And for the first time in forever, my mind was quiet too. There were no more games, no more lies hanging over me. No more wondering if I was imagining things or if I was overreacting. I had trusted my gut, I had fought back, and I had won. But the truth is, it wasn't just about beating Elliot. It was about finding myself again, rebuilding what he tried to tear down. Not just my finances, but my identity, my confidence, my sense of safety in the world. He thought he was breaking me. He thought I'd crumble. But I didn't. And now I get to start over. Not as a victim, not as someone's wife, but as Britney. Just Britney. Stronger, wiser, whole. In the days that followed, something incredible happened. People started reaching out. Women I'd known for years, acquaintances, even strangers, sharing their own stories. Stories of betrayal, manipulation, survival. They said watching me speak out gave them the courage to do the same. Some were still stuck, scared to leave. Some had just begun the process. Others had already escaped and were still healing. But we were all connected by one truth. We weren't alone. And that more than anything kept me going. I started journaling, meditating, traveling. I went back to hobbies I'd long abandoned. Painting, baking, even dance. I redecorated the house room by room, tearing out the parts that reminded me of Elliot and replacing them with pieces of myself. It felt like breathing again after being underwater for years. The scar he left? It's still there. I won't pretend I'm magically healed. There are nights when I wake up sweating from old nightmares. There are songs I can't listen to anymore, certain places I still avoid. But I'm not afraid of the scar. It's proof I survived. One day, maybe, I'll fall in love again. Maybe I won't. But either way, I know I'll never lose myself like that again. I've learned how to listen to that quiet voice inside me, the one that whispered when things didn't feel right, the one I ignored for too long. I don't ignore her anymore. She's the voice that saved me. And to any woman out there listening who feels stuck or small or unsure if what she's feeling is valid, let me be clear. You're not crazy. You're not weak. And you are never, ever alone. If you feel something's off, it probably is. If someone is making you doubt your worth, your voice, your intuition, it's not love. Real love doesn't need lies. It doesn't steal from you or shrink you. It sees you, respects you, grows with you. Don't wait for the perfect time to speak up. There is no perfect time. There's only now. And trust me when I say this. The moment you choose yourself, everything changes. You stop surviving, and you start living. So here I am, not as the woman Elliot thought he could control, but as the woman who stood in the fire and walked out shining,